Hello, my friends, I'm Nora, and today I want to take you through this story slowly and carefully. Because what happened in the case of Betty and Connor Bowman didn't just affect the people involved. It revealed how betrayal, when mixed with calculation and quiet cruelty, can turn a home into a silent battlefield, long before anyone realizes a crime has taken place. I want you to settle in with me for this one, because what unfolds here is not just a murder case. It's a story about trust, the kind you give freely to the person you share a life with, and how devastating it becomes when that trust is broken in the most chilling way possible. As we move through this story together, I want you to imagine the small moments that built this marriage, the subtle changes that broke it apart, and the dark decisions that shaped its final days. Because crimes like this one never begin with the act itself. They begin long before, in private thoughts no one else sees, in conversations that seem harmless, in choices nobody questions until it's too late. Betty Bowman was a woman who moved through the world with quiet determination. She grew up in Kansas, in a family where work ethic wasn't something that needed to be taught. It was simply lived. She carried that with her into adulthood, into her education, into her career. People who knew her often described her as focused, disciplined, naturally curious about the science she loved. There was a gentleness to her, but also a drive, the kind that made her stand out long before she realized she was standing out at all. Connor, the man she would later marry, came from a very different place internally. His childhood wasn't defined by hardship, but by a mindset that always seemed to circle around one question. What can I get out of this? He wasn't lazy. Not exactly. He had charm, a kind of quick wit that helped him navigate situations without always having to put in the work others did. Where Betty leaned into effort, he leaned into opportunity. And in the beginning, that difference wasn't a warning sign. It just made him seem bold, confident, even exciting. They met in college, two students walking similar academic paths, but with utterly different reasons for being on them. Betty wanted to understand the body, the chemicals that heal it, the medicines that save lives. Connor wanted knowledge too, but not for the same reasons. His interest had less to do with helping people, and more to do with understanding how the human body could be influenced, controlled, manipulated. Still, when you're young and building a life, people's motivations aren't always easy to read. Sometimes charm can look like ambition, sometimes confidence looks like stability, and sometimes the person who admires your strengths is actually quietly planning to lean on them. They married in 2021, a wedding filled with all the usual hopes. Betty had a future that seemed to be expanding quickly. She received an offer to work at the Mayo Clinic, one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world. It was the kind of opportunity that propelled careers, the kind that validated everything she had worked for. So she and Connor moved to Minnesota, ready to start what they believed would be the next chapter of their shared life. But inside their home, something began to shift, slowly at first, then in ways that were harder to ignore. Connor had never finished his own path toward a medical career. He was still in school, still accruing debt, still dependent on Betty in more ways than he wanted to admit. She paid the bills, she paid for his education, she paid for their life. And while she didn't complain, that imbalance created a quiet resentment in him, a feeling that only grew as her star continued to rise. To the outside world, they looked like a young professional couple settling into adulthood. But behind closed doors, the weight of uneven responsibility was wearing thin. Betty was thriving, building friendships, contributing to research, impressing her colleagues. Connor was struggling with his identity, drifting in and out of academic programs, trying to find footing, but never fully committing. And over time, that imbalance began to shape the way he viewed her, not as a partner, but as a resource, a safety net. At some point in their attempt to manage growing distance, they agreed to open their relationship, a decision that can stabilize some marriages, but in others, only reveals fractures that were already there. They set rules, boundaries, lines that were never supposed to be crossed. But rules mean nothing to someone already imagining a life where you're not part of the equation. By the time Betty discovered Connor's growing attachment to another woman, her decision was clear. She wanted out. She wanted to leave the marriage, reclaim her independence, and step back into a life that didn't require her to carry another adult's entire world on her shoulders. For her, this was clarity. For Connor, it was catastrophe. Divorce meant losing the comfortable lifestyle he had grown accustomed to. It meant losing financial support, losing the home, losing the image of stability he relied on. It meant debt. A lot of it. Debt he couldn't pay. Debt that had followed him for years and would now crash onto him without warning. And in that panic, something dark took hold. People often imagine that the most dangerous crimes are committed in moments of rage, but sometimes the most chilling actions are committed in silence, with planning, calculation, and a complete absence of empathy. Connor began to imagine a future without Betty, not because she walked away, but because she never got the chance to. He knew her routines, her favourite foods, her habits, her vulnerabilities, and he also knew something else. The chemical world that both of them worked in had a darker side. A side where dosage determines life or death, and where certain substances can kill without leaving obvious traces unless someone knows exactly what to look for. So let me take you to the evening of August 10th, 2023. Betty was home in Rochester, preparing to spend a simple night with a close friend. Just an evening to unwind, laugh, forget stress, enjoy being around someone who made her feel at ease. Connor wasn't usually part of these moments. He didn't connect easily with her friends. He tended to withdraw, but that night he appeared in the kitchen with an unusual offer, one that startled both women with how out of character it was. "Do you want smoothies?" he asked. And right away, Betty felt something inside her tighten. It wasn't suspicion, not yet, more like confusion. Connor didn't cook. He didn't prepare food. He didn't make smoothies. He didn't do any of this, but he moved through the kitchen quickly, blending, pouring, presenting 2 glasses with an enthusiasm that didn't match his usual behavior. Betty's first sip changed everything. Bitter, salty, wrong. Her face tightened. Her friend tasted it too and agreed. Why did it taste like that? What went into it? But instead of pushing, instead of questioning, they tossed the drinks away, assuming maybe he messed up the recipe. Maybe he used expired ingredients. Maybe he simply didn't know what he was doing. Connor watched them, quietly, emotionlessly, not offering to fix the drinks, not making jokes, not shrugging it off, just observing. That was his first attempt, a failed one. And failure, in his mind, only meant adjustment. 4 days later, on August 14th, he tried again. This time, Betty came home exhausted, bone-tired, the kind of fatigue that makes your guard slip. She walked through the door, hoping for a peaceful night. But Connor was waiting, once again, offering a smoothie with a calmness he knew she wouldn't question this time. He had studied, calculated, chosen the dosage, hidden the taste, and she drank it. Not all at once, not dramatically, just casually, as a tired woman drinking something made for her by the person she still believed, on some level, cared for her. By midnight, the first symptoms began: a headache, fatigue, a wave of nausea that she tried to push away, chalking it up to exhaustion. But by morning, her condition had worsened rapidly. The human body can endure so much, but it also knows when something is deeply wrong. Her system sent signals: dizziness, weakness, extreme dehydration. Her digestive tract was in chaos, rejecting water, rejecting food, rejecting even rest. By the afternoon of August 15th, every step felt like lifting concrete. Her temperature fluctuated wildly. Her muscles ached. Her body was shutting down piece by piece. But she didn't know why, and she didn't know she was running out of time. By August 16th, she could barely hold her phone. Her voice was weak, her breathing strained, but she managed to call the Mayo Clinic. And the moment she arrived, the look on the medical team's faces said everything. They saw a woman whose organs were in crisis, whose system was collapsing without explanation. Her intestines showed signs of necrosis, tissue dying from within. Her kidneys began to fail, her liver followed. Machines supported her body, but her body was already fighting a battle it could not win. Meanwhile, Connor stood beside her bed, insisting she had a rare genetic disorder known as HLH, a claim that puzzled doctors, because nothing in her history supported that. He brought it up repeatedly, unsolicited, almost like someone rehearsing an answer before anyone had asked the question. Doctors searched for explanations. But nothing matched. Nothing made sense. Nothing explained why a healthy 32-year-old woman was deteriorating at this speed. But someone knew. He knew. He had known from the moment he handed her that glass. Over the next days, her organs failed one after another. And on August 20th at 2:50 p.m., Betty Bowman was pronounced dead. And almost immediately, Connor's behavior shifted from silent husband to man in a hurry. A hurry that didn't match grief. He refused an autopsy. He pushed for cremation within hours. He excluded Betty's mother and sister from her obituary. He removed her photos from their home. He threw away or packed up her belongings. He invited a friend over for drinks and smiled. He brought another woman into the home within days. And he spoke openly about life insurance money as if discussing a long-awaited paycheck. Grief doesn't look the same for everyone, but this wasn't grief. It was relief. The kind that slips out when someone believes they've escaped consequences, but consequences were already on their way. Doctors had doubts, investigators had suspicions, and when Betty's preserved blood samples were tested, one word changed everything: colchicine. A powerful medication for gout, safe in small doses, deadly in larger ones. Not easy to obtain, not easy to administer without knowledge. But Connor had worked in toxicology. He knew exactly how it worked. And his computer confirmed that knowledge. Searches about lethal doses, searches on how to hide poison, searches on erasing purchase records, searches done from his workstation at Mayo Clinic, purchases of colchicine, purchases of sodium nitrate, a digital trail of intent. When investigators spoke to Betty's friend, she told them about the first smoothie, the bitterness, the salty aftertaste, the uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. What they dismissed as a bad recipe suddenly became a failed attempt at poisoning. And everything came together. A failing marriage, a looming divorce, finances in shambles, a $500,000 insurance policy, a man who saw murder as a cleaner solution than responsibility. On October 20th, 2023, Connor Bowman was arrested, calmly, without resistance, as though he had practiced the moment in his mind and already accepted it. He couldn't pay the $2 million bail. His life, the one he tried to rebuild on the ashes of his wife's, collapsed under the weight of evidence. And as of now, he sits in custody, awaiting trial. Betty's family waits too, not just for justice, but for understanding, for a reason why someone she supported, loved and believed in chose to betray her in the most personal, devastating way. For the answer to a question no one ever wants to ask. How does someone look into the eyes of the person who trusts them most and decide that their life is worth more dead than alive? Maybe the answer is greed. Maybe it's desperation. Maybe it's a lifetime of choices that finally converged on one horrific moment. But whatever the reason, the truth is this: Betty deserved better. She deserved safety. She deserved a partner who valued her life more than her paycheck. She deserved a future she never got the chance to live. As you sit with this story, I want you to remember something. Evil doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it enters a home quietly, pretending to love you, pretending to care, pretending to share a life with you, until one day the mask falls away and you realize it was never love at all. Thank you for staying with me through this difficult journey. If you feel compelled to, share Betty's story. Stories like this remind us why awareness matters, why listening to your instincts matters, why paying attention to the small signs, the bitterness in a drink, the shift in tone, the sudden kindness from someone who rarely offers it, matters more than you might think. I'm Nora, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous place to stand is beside someone who believes your life is worth more to them when it ends.